Have you ever heard of phantom runners? Anyone ever heard of phantom runners? Apparently, most long distance races, most marathons have them. And they're runners who start the race, then disappear, and then mysteriously pop up at the end of the race. While honest runners rely on their feet to cover the 42 kilometres, these other athletes make use of alternative modes of transport, such as bikes, buses, cabs, even trains. Now, you might think this is a new invention, but no. The first known phantom runner, his name was Fred, of course. There's always someone called Fred. But it was Fred Laws, and he won the 1904 Olympics. And he was stripped of his gold medal after he admitted that he'd hitched a ride in a car for nearly half the race. And the world hasn't become more honest. A few years back, in 97 I think it was, 10 of the top 100 finishers in the San Francisco Marathon were disqualified. One guy was found hiding in a portaloo, ready to pop out at the right time, just near the end of the race. So why do people do it? Surely the reward of training and finishing the race would be longer and would last longer and be more satisfying if you'd actually run the race. Surely it'd be more satisfying. But we live in a world that is chasing the instant emotional high. We're happy to join the adrenaline rush. You ever been at the beginning of a race? There's adrenaline there. It's exciting. We're happy to be in there for that bit. But we want to shortcut the journey, yet we still expect to be able to celebrate success. We see this same attitude when it comes to marriage. Lots of people happy to join the adrenaline rush of the beginning, but many not investing in the journey, yet still expecting that they're going to share in success. I believe over these next few weeks, God is going to coach us regarding the journey, to give us relationships that will go the journey, to help us to be able to have a vow that lasts. In this series, we're going to look at the first 3 lines from the marriage vows that many of us have uttered and some of us will make in the future. But in case some of you are thinking you can have a snooze now, maybe marriage is something that's in the past for you or something that's too far into the future, think again. No, you can't have a snooze. A lot of what we're going to talk about is true of relationships in general. And so hopefully there's going to be something we can learn to do with other relationships as well. But also, marriage is a sacrament. Marriage is a symbol that helps us understand our relationship with God better. So I'm praying that as well as strengthening our relationships with each other, we will, as we journey through this series, grow in our appreciation of the love God displays toward us. Because our instruction and our teaching of how we should love each other will all be based on the love that God shows to us. So I'm hoping that not only will our relationships be strengthened, but our understanding of God's love for us and our appreciation of the way God loves us will grow. Well, when Lenore was here, we had a great deal. She did the funerals, I did the weddings. I got out of that pretty good, I think. Because weddings, she was very nice to me. Weddings are great. And next weekend, I'll be conducting a wedding in Brisbane. And no doubt I will find a couple dazzling and dreamy-eyed standing before one another. And I'll ask the first question, which they probably won't even listen to. You know that question of, has anyone got any objections? And after the uncomfortable silence, I'll move on. And I'll get to the second question. And the second question is pretty obvious. Do you take her to be your wife? Now, I don't think he'd be standing within swinging distance if he was going to say no to that question. I don't think that would happen. But then we get on to the third question, and that's the one we're going to be interested in this morning. And as we look at a vow that lasts, this third question, and it starts with these words. Do you promise to love? Now, right at the outset of this series, I want to acknowledge that there are many people in this room who have been touched by marriages that end in divorce. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, one, because it's a bit personal, but I don't have to. I know, but also to be touched by divorce, to be a child of divorced parents, to have gone through divorce yourself. The size of this room, I would venture to say that most of us have been touched by divorce. As much as our world tries to portray that temporary relationships, loose and fragile temporary relationships are a good thing, we know that there is damage done when couples who have been bound together are torn apart. We also know that sometimes the damage of staying together is worse than being torn apart. In cases where there's abuse, physical or emotional, and where there's trust, where trust has been broken beyond repair, God is a gracious God who provides means for a fresh start. Allowing for this though, I came to this topic wondering, what difference would Jesus make if he was allowed to in our marriages? What difference would Jesus make? Even if one spouse was prepared to allow Jesus to come in and change how they did marriage, what difference could Jesus make? Could it make the difference not only between being married and divorced, but between being loveless and thriving? So we get back to that original question. The vow starts, do you promise to love? The Salvation Army's marriage vows start not only with a declaration of love, it's not just a statement of, yes, I love you, it's a promise to love. In a world where it's accepted and part of normal conversation to describe love as something you fall into and fall out of, how can we expect people to stand up and say, I promise love? When people explain relationships falling apart, they say, well, people change, feelings change, circumstances change. To promise to love someone forever is not a realistic promise. If love is something we fall into and out of, surely a promise to love forever is really just a statement of hope. That these feelings that I have today, I hope that they last forever. If we follow the world's definition of love, where love is something you fall into and out of, surely that's all that promise means. Is I hope that these feelings that I have today last forever. And I love when I'm preparing for sermons how God puts things across my path. And this one came out of left field from a long way away. There was an article in a newspaper in Montreal this week, in the Montreal Gazette in Canada, and it was publishing a study of 1,400 couples. And it has concluded that one of the flimsiest foundations for a marriage is love. This hope that the feelings of love will last forever is flimsy. Because the feelings you have when you're dating are likely to be slightly different when the kids are screaming. They're likely to be slightly different when the chores seem endless, when the bills are pressing, when work pressures are high. It can be hard to be that carefree teen or mid-20s something that used to whisk your loved one off for a romantic picnic and just spend hours gazing in each other's eyes. It can be hard to do that. People change. Circumstances change. And yes, you may not even feel like it. But God shows us a love that is not flimsy, and not a flimsy foundation for marriage. He shows us and calls us to experience a love that surpasses the shallow depths of a falling into and falling out of kind of love. Our text for this morning actually has nothing to do with marriage, but it's one of the greatest statements of love in the Bible. When we were utterly helpless, I got a message. When we were utterly helpless, Christ came at just the right time and died for us sinners. Now, most people would not be willing to die for an upright person.